Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I'm going to treat this particular video mostly as let's say an XRP community member highlight. You got to check this out. This is a cool piece here written by All the Way 08 on Twitter. And if you are on Twitter, I encourage you, if you're a fan of XRP, go ahead and follow this guy. That's a friendly recommendation right there. He's at All the Way 08. It's on the screen right now, and go ahead and check this out. He just very recently released his latest blog via Coil and tagged me in this. And this is a cool piece. So I mostly want to run through this. I'm going to let the piece talk, for itself more or less. Here's the original tweet, though. It's a two-parter. I'm just going to read both, but he did go ahead and tag me in this. Hashtag XRP community. Some might get mad. Feel free to block and unfollow. I felt it needs to be said. We should treat crypto as a serious investment and do away with conspiracy theories and theorists. As someone who holds XRP, I want the asset taken seriously when I tell people about it. The cartoon bears and the conspiracies make that difficult when people start doing their homework. The space needs to mature, be part of the solution, and not part of the problem. I definitely agree with that sentiment, and if you're one of the people that has been following the riddles and the bears, certainly no offense to you whatsoever, but to me, none of that has ever made a damn bit of sense. Again, I'm okay with diversity of thought. If you bought into that, I don't think you're stupid. I'm not saying anything negative about you on a personal level whatsoever. I'm just sharing with you that to me, that stuff has never made a damn bit of sense. I've been very interested from the get-go when I entered the world of crypto almost 2 full years ago, just finding out the facts, learning about the fundamentals of the space, XRP, Ripple, other developers building on top of the XRP ledger, all of that good stuff, all the bears and all the hype around it and this or that. I've never been a big fan of it. That's why this is not a hype channel. The closest we get to that on the Moon Lambo channel, other than my stupid name, which is making fun of the hype pretty much, because it is stupid. I mean, when Moon, when Lambo. It's a joke. I have a sense of humor. But other than that, the closest I get is when people will make out like price predictions. Like, I'm happy to talk about that. But again, I always preface it with, hey, I just think it's fun content. And it's interesting when some people are right and find out who's right, who's wrong, and then kind of follow those people in the XRP community accordingly. I kind of let the people who watch judge. And that's as close as I get to it. But I don't make predictions and I don't do hype. I talk about what I've learned from a fundamental perspective and just analysis. So that's why when All the Way 08 wrote those tweets, absolutely resonated with me. So go ahead and check out this piece. This is his, I believe, 6th Coil piece ever. He started this blog within the last few months or so. Go ahead and check this out, especially, tell you what, now that Hodor's left the space, there's a hole in your life, isn't there? Go ahead and fill it with All the Way 08. So it's out of this piece, Conspiracies and Nonsense. And it begins. Words are hard. The infamous they. If we could only find out who they is, because they control everything. They control governments, finance, oil, proof of alien visitation, human thoughts and behavior, and a small San Francisco startup called Ripple. They is George Soros. They is the Kochs. Talking about the Koch brothers. They is the 1%. They is all the elected or self-appointed leaders of the world. They is the Rothschilds and the banks. They is our alien overlords. Hell, they has also been an entire race of human beings for a time in the 1930s and 1940s. We are simply the puppets that they manipulate for their own selfish desires and motivations. Money, power, greed, amusement, etc. Apparently they have pre-allocated Ripple's XRP and escrow to distribute among the nations of the world to be the world reserve currency and to possibly digitize the world's gold reserves. Impossible, you say? That is what they want you to think. They want you to stay poor. They gone out and coordinated with every major news network to keep you in the dark, but fear not, for there is a dedicated group of Twitter users and YouTubers who have figured out they's plans and are letting you know about it. I'm obviously being facetious here. I felt compelled to write something as I see more propagation of crazy conspiracies surrounding digital currencies. These conspiracies aren't unique to any one cryptocurrency. They're pretty much all over crypto Twitter. I don't want to single any one Twitter user or YouTuber out either. There are a lot of gullible people in crypto, and that is why people fall for scams about 100 million XRP airdrops from Twitter accounts that sort of resemble Brad Garlinghouse's. It is because of this fact that making a claim about XRP being the world reserve currency gets you tons of likes and followers. If you were invested in a crypto, you would most likely want that to be true. All one has to do is point to meetings with the IMF, BIS, the Fed, and the White House. Then also point to a few comments by people from those same organizations and page 7 from a document created by R3, a company that has been involved with Ripple, to come up with something like pre-allocation theory. Go out, make a YouTube video with a title like XRP going to $10,000 or XRP World Reserve Currency Price Rise Imminent, and then watch the likes, subscriptions, and followers pour in to your Twitter account and YouTube channel. If I wanted to, it would be very easy for me to pretend to be an anonymous insider at R3 or Ripple, start making some cryptic tweets, and then go on to gain a massive following quickly, which I could then monetize. I could throw out a date far in the future that everything would come to a massive head and then disappear without any consequence when it didn't come true. I could then repeat the same cycle if I really wanted to. Why do these conspiracies get such big followings? Because conspiracies are exciting. It's exciting and uplifting to think that you have some secret knowledge that will make you rich or just be in the know when others aren't. It helps one make sense of the chaos around them. As humans, we abhor disorganization. We want to find patterns where patterns don't exist. We want to believe there are guarantees, even though our study of quantum mechanics seems to negate that anything is guaranteed. We find evidence that the Earth is flat, that the moon landing was faked, that the Earth is hollow, that aliens built the pyramids, that 9/11 was an inside job, that the Russians created Bitcoin, that the Chinese created Bitcoin, that the NSA created Bitcoin, and that they are putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Just ask Alex Jones. Good point. The truth is, there is no one entity that controls everything. There is no shadow government pulling our strings. Do governments sometimes have interests that marry up with each other? Yes. Do they do some really nefarious stuff? Hell yeah, they do. Are there organizations that would like us to move to a global government like the Open Society Foundation? Yep. Are there organizations that help countries form alliances and coalitions so that they don't have to act unilaterally like the UN or the IMF? Absolutely. Even with these organizations and alliances, however, nothing is certain and countries all have their own self-interests around the world. Those self-interests often contradict each other, which is why you have trade disputes and other conflicts around the world. It is why some countries end up with crushing economic sanctions against them, and it is also why other countries will circumvent those same UN agreed upon sanctions to trade with the sanctioned country. If you ever end up working in any part of the government where a security clearance is required, you will quickly realize how compartmentalized sensitive information is, and that is done on purpose. The good thing is that no one person knows everything, so it protects the revelation of too much sensitive information from prying eyes. The bad thing is that this makes seeing the big picture difficult. Frankly, it's probably impossible to see the whole picture clearly, and things are easily missed. You would be very surprised about how much of the big picture those in power get to see is influenced by what they happen to be shown. Sometimes that could be driven by an agenda. Other times it's just the information that someone thought was relevant, and chances they miss something just as important or maybe even more so. My point in saying all of this is that those in power control a lot less of what happens than you might think. They are more like trained opportunists that are particularly adept at seizing opportunities as they present themselves because they gained or have the means to do so. The coordination it would take to get every G20 nation to agree to pick a digital currency as the world reserve and agree on a pre-allocated amount for all would be prohibitively difficult. How would you determine what amount everyone would get? GDP? That may make the US and China happy, but do you think Russia would be okay with that metric? They aren't even in the top 10. How about gold reserves? Russia might be a little happier about that, but you would leave China outside the top 5 and the UK outside the top 10. Well, what if everyone got the same amount? That isn't fair to those countries that contribute most to the global economy. Okay, well, what if we let them purchase as much as they wanted to in OTC sales from Ripple? I can't imagine the G20 nations agreeing to make Ripple, a US company, one of the most cash-rich companies in the world. When has anything like that ever happened? Why would China want to do that to a U.S. company with a significant amount of Japanese investment instead of a state-owned entity, SOE, within its own borders? If all of the G20 nations wanted to jump full force into blockchain and DLT, and we know that not all countries are completely on board with cryptocurrencies, why wouldn't they just come up with their own solutions? If they did, wouldn't that be great news for Ripple? It absolutely would. You would need something to bridge those disparate closed loops, which is what Ripple has been positioning XRP for a while now. How many times does David Schwartz need to talk about XRP as a bridge currency and talk about walled gardens for people to realize this? Ripple has been positioning XRP and the XRP ledger as an interoperability solution for a financial system that is filled with closed loops. These closed loops make value transfer difficult and results in trapped liquidity that could be better utilized. If the powers of the world wanted to move towards cashless societies and wanted to upgrade the digital infrastructure of their financial system so that financial institutions could interact more easily with emerging tech like distributed ledger technology, that would be the upgrade that Ripple would want. Maybe that is why the media was kicked out of the G20. Maybe that is why the IMF has seemingly been interested in what Ripple has been doing. If Ripple succeeds as a bridge currency, it will be massive. Value will move like information. The Internet of Value will come into existence. That is Ripple's place in all of this, and they have been saying as much. None of this has anything to do with being the world reserve currency or pre-allocated amounts for the countries of the world. Pre-allocation theory to me is just clickbait. It gets likes, it gets subscribers, and it is exciting to think about, but it is bad for gullible speculators entering the crypto space because there is a very high likelihood, and he writes in parentheses, I'm 99.9999% sure, but that is just me, that it won't come true. There is a very high likelihood that gullible people will make buy and sell decisions based on it. It is bad for the XRP community as a whole, in my humble opinion. When some of the influencers with the largest followings in the community preach it, it makes the investment look like a bad one because investing in conspiracies is generally a bad idea. What would you say to someone who told you they had a surefire investment opportunity if you invested $10,000 of your own money, you would be guaranteed riches because of a global conspiracy they found out about? I have told some close friends about what I believe is going on with blockchain, the Internet of Value, and distributed ledger technology. Every time, I have to preface what I tell them with, you might hear about a cartoon bear, a guy named Shane Ellis, a new global reserve currency, and pre-allocation theory that some guy on YouTube thought up. Please ignore the conspiracies and keep an open mind. Frankly, it's all a very frustrating and annoying distraction/sideshow to what should be a really great investment if Ripple achieves what I believe they will. There are plenty of reasons to be very bullish about XRP's future without it being made the global reserve currency. Bravo! Bravo! Well written. I absolutely share the sentiment that is communicated in this blog. That's why I've always been from the very beginning non-hype, and I see all the dot connecting, and when I see the dot connecting, I don't cover it. I mean, if you could go back and find an example, that would be a rare exception. I can't even think of one, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't like I always see in my Twitter feed all this stuff about the IMF and everything else cited in here and pre-allocation theory, and I just think, how about I cover the real news? And so I just find the actual real news. I talk about the fundamentals. It's fun to talk a little bit about price, but I'm not going to make price predictions. I'm not going to pretend like I know where it's going. I don't pretend to be a chart analyst, and so I'm completely on board with what is stated in here. And I think the more this type of messaging gets out, the more chance there is for thoughts along these lines to be accepted. But it's okay. And again, if you're one of the people that has bought into any of the things cited within here, it's not a personal slam against you. It's not that we think you're stupid. It's this just, look, like I always say, I absolutely encourage diversity of thought. It's just for me, when things get out in like some of the things cited here, it gets a little too far into left field for me, and it starts to sound a little bit fringe, just for my taste. And if you disagree, that's fine. We can still be friends. But just on a general basis, I share the concern about people entering the space. There's so much data. Go to YouTube. Go to Google. Go wherever. Start researching XRP if you're here on day one, and there's just an overload of information. And the concern that especially some of the newer people, could they be more gullible, or could they just be less informed and then buy or sell assets accordingly? It's just, I think it's a legit concern. That's what I want to say here. So I appreciate the piece. I think it's well written. I think it's a fair stance to have. And if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. Share your opinion below. I'd like to hear from you. That's cool. We can all still be friends even if we disagree on stuff, right? That's what I would like on the Moon Lambo channel. So that's it for this video. But again, I want to say this. If you haven't followed this guy, I think he deserves it. And he's blogging. I think it's worth it. If you're trying to be in touch with more XRP community members, he should be up there. He's at alltheway08. I'm not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Lambo!